This is the New York Sports Machine on WICR.
What's going on, everyone? Antonio Coppola and Tom Meehan back with you on this Thursday. Today's Thursday, right? November 4th. I'm losing track of the days. Busy week, Tom.
It's been a long week, and I'm kind of looking forward to the nice, long, relaxing weekend at home. So.
Oh, that's right. You're going home for the weekend. Yeah. I'll be at home as well because I do commute. But, Tom, before we talk about our weekend plans or get into the weekend, we got to talk about the Mets because we sat here a week ago. They were down 2-0 in the series. They went to Kauffman Stadium for those first two games in Kansas City. Came back home. Series was over.
I'll tell you, it was like, I don't even want to get this brutal as an analogy, but like it was like watching the Titanic sink at the end.
Yeah.
It was just like, you knew it was going to happen, and you're just sitting there like, oh my God, it's just like, they're getting more runs? Like, this is still happening? Like,
it was just the fashion in which it happened. I mean, obviously they came home in that Game 3, they won. So they made it 2-1, and then they kind of gave everyone some hope.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just all went from there.
Yep, everyone had that hope, but their lead was too small, and they didn't have enough hits. They had nothing, like really. Like I mean, it's not they had nothing, but I don't know. The lead wasn't that strong, and for a team like Kansas City, who was like known to hit more than just 2 runs, it definitely factored in. We knew that was the tides were going to turn, but the Mets fans didn't really think about it that way.
I mean, there's a lot of things to discuss about how this series turned out. Obviously, the first one, Daniel Murphy, was not Daniel Murphy.
No.
Whether it was at the plate,
I'm surprised.
In the field, 2 crucial errors in the end of games 4 and 5, which he literally just booted a ground ball and allowed a runner to score.
And people are comparing it to a Bill Buckner play, and I'm just like, I don't know if it's that severe, but it's definitely a tide-turning error.
Mm-hmm.
So.
I mean, looking at the scores of these games, aside from Game 2 where the Mets lost 7-1, I mean, Game 1, 4-5 extra innings.
Mm-hmm.
Game 3, the Mets won 9-3. Game 4, the Mets lost 5-3. And then, Game 5, we all know what happened, them losing in extras yet again. After they were winning the entire game. I want to get your take on the whole Matt Harvey situation in that game. For those that don't know, Matt Harvey's just throwing gas. And he goes the entire game. I believe he gave up 3 hits. He was pitching a 3-hitter through 8 innings.
Mm-hmm. Comes
Comes out in the 8th. The hitting coach, Dan Warthen, goes over to Harvey in the dugout and says, "You're done." He says, you could see him on television. They had him on camera. He says, "No way, no way."
Mm-hmm.
He walks over to Terry Collins, has a word with him. Eventually gets sent back out there, and you're thinking, okay, the crowd's chanting his name. He's just dealing. He's pumped up. He wants to finish this. It's just a statement for him after what happened with him last year, missing the entire year with the Tommy John. He goes out there and he gives up a walk, a double, and then they had to yank him.
Yep. And
eventually the Mets collapsed. I just want to get your take on that whole situation. Do you think Matt Harvey should have went out there? Do you think Terry Collins made the right move?
I don't know. I feel like the whole initial speculation of getting him out there was kind of maybe playing with his nerves. Mm-hmm. I'm not too sure. He was throwing for a guy. The whole game he was throwing cheddar, and that team didn't know what to do, the Royals. And I don't know, I personally they should have just not even addressed it. They should have just kept him in, kept him going. And he was doing great. So I don't know, I feel like I would have been very upset if that was my team and like they took him out. I don't know. I think they should have kept him in.
I agree. I mean, he had to go back out there. The way he was pitching, I know he was over 100 pitches. I know everyone was talking about his pitch count.
Right.
Fans chanting his name. Just the flow of the game, it seemed right to send him back out there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I didn't like was Terry Collins making up his mind to take him out and then changing his mind again. Right. Just don't go over to him in the dugout after the 8th inning and say you're coming out. Just let him go back out and then put him back in. Just instead of that, just let him go back out there and yank him as soon as something happens, which he didn't do. Matt Harvey gives up a leadoff walk in the 9th inning, in the top of the 9th, and he leaves him in, and the next batter hits a double. So, I guess Terry Collins is to blame here, but in the end, I just think it was just an unfortunate situation for the Mets. And then to have them go into extra innings and just that bullpen is just a disaster. I mean, the Royals blew the game open in the 14th.
They how many did they get? Like you got 5 runs.
Yeah, they had a 5-run inning. I think that was the most runs ever in a World Series extra inning. Or in an extra innings game.
Something.
So I mean, kudos to the Royals. They played a great series.
And I really like. I'm not upset that I'm a Yankee fan. I'm not upset that they lost. The Mets lost.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not upset that the Royals won. I'm glad the Royals won. and I would have been more glad if New York won. But
Right.
whatever. Like I wanted the Royals to win last year, and I'm glad they got their chance again and they took it. So.
No, absolutely. I mean, after what happened last year, losing in Game 7 with a runner on third base, 90 feet away from tying the game.
Yep.
I mean, they were on a
Ended
mission
on
all
a foul
year.
ball. I remember I was watching that. I was
Right. Yeah, it was just you felt bad for them. You kind of had a feeling they were going to get back, and which leads me into before we close, the Mets. I mean, the way this season played out for them, it was a little bit lucky. I mean, the way everything happened, they struggled early on over the summer in terms of hitting. They couldn't score. They get Cespedes, a couple other pieces. They just go on a tear.
Right.
Now we don't think Cespedes is coming back. We don't think Daniel Murphy's coming back. The roster's going to look pretty similar to this past season, aside from those two pieces, because we don't. I mean, Sandy Alderson's not going to go and spend the money to get a big bat. And the Mets' mission needs to be to get back, because you saw what the Royals did.
Yes.
They had that bad taste in their mouth the entire offseason. They were just had one goal in mind, was to get back to the World Series and win it, and they did.
Yep.
So I think it's going to be tough for the Mets to overcome exactly what happened. I mean, yes, it was a great year for them. No one expected them to go, but at the same time, they need to find a way to get back there, and I don't know if they have the roster to do it.
You know what? I could compare this, because if any chance I get to talk about the Rangers, I'll take it.
Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, is coming next week now that we have no more baseball left.
Yeah, and
continue.
I'm very excited. But I can compare. Like, I see a lot of people online, a lot of buzz talking about comparing this playoff run, the Mets playoff run this year, to the Rangers run where they went to the Stanley Cup against the Kings. They eventually lost. In the fact that they were an underdog team. No one expected them to get there from the beginning, and they just snuck in, and ended up really killing it.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the finals and lost in the most painful way, the most painful way they could. They didn't get swept. They lost in double overtimes and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Went to 5 games and they just lost in double overtime. It was a heartbreaker. I still feel the pain from that game.
Right,
and
all
I'm
those
sure
games
Mets
were
fans
so
feel the same
close.
way.
They were all one-score games.
Horrible. That's something they got to fix, but we can get into that next week.
Yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Those one-goal games.
We got to talk about Rick Nash. I'm not a big fan, but anyway.
Yeah, he's got to get a real goal.
I can't. But anyways, that's all we're going to have for today. Again, congrats to the Mets on a great season. Obviously, it didn't finish the way they wanted, but we will be back next week. We're going to discuss Rangers. We're going to discuss the Knicks. We're going to discuss some football. We'll be back with everything next week. Have a good weekend, everyone.
Take care, everybody.